Okay, so today we're going to be talking about hours in liturgy. Last week we talked about vigil. If you were here, thank you so much for coming. I think most of you were. We are going to. So the plan for today is we're going to talk about. We have a handout there with hours and liturgy. We're going to look at the rubrics a little bit. Most of you who have been reading have done hours, the epistle. Many of you have done the Beatitudes. Most of you have done the prayer of Thanksgiving after communion. So you're pretty aware, but we're going to go through it anyway. And the main goal would be for you to be able to look at the rubrics and figure out what you're looking for and how to find it. So like Peter makes the epistle sheet. That's really super helpful. We're going to keep making those. But if we don't have one, like last Sunday, we're going to talk about last Sunday, there are tools at your disposal to figure out what you need to do without that. For hours, we make a little sticky note. We're going to get to where everyone can make their own sticky note, that kind of thing. So that's what we're aiming for today. So we have a handout here that's called How to Read Hours in Liturgy. We're going to start with hours. The first thing, there's a note there. Oh, I need a marker. So there are 4 hours. I think most of us know that. 1, 3, 6, and 9. So in the we do the 3rd and the 6th before Divine Liturgy. Does anyone know which one we do before Presanctified? 9th. Yes. So there's 1, 3, 6, 9. That is going to be important in a moment. So the changeable parts in hours is the Troparion and the Kontakion. When you have been reading through hours, we read it out of this little book. We have recently added here this tab that shows you that the Troparion and Kontakia are in the back of the book. So I've been having you read the resurrectional Troparion and Kontakion out of the back. The Triodian ones are here with this orange tab. There's also festal, like great feasts tabs, and there's a yellow sticky note here to mark it. So that is how we've been doing it. I know it's more flipping, but as we talked about last week, the services in the Orthodox Church require some multitasking. So that's going to be how we're going to do it from now.
So sometimes we have readings like for the saint of the day, which are not in there.
Correct.
Are we still going to use the binders for those?
Yes.
Okay.
So if there is a saint of the day, like for tomorrow, well, nope, not for tomorrow. Anyway, if there's a saint for the day or a Troparion that's not in this book, there will be sheet music that you will read from. Reading from sheet music, it's a bit of a pain because it's hard to see the punctuation and everything, but I think everyone does a pretty good job with it. Just like try to take a look at it beforehand, make sure you're reading sentences. And we do try to put that sheet music, we try to have extra copies on the reader stand for you. If they're not there, they will be in the liturgy book, in the liturgy binder, and you can find them there. Okay? If you finish, so this should take about 20 minutes. Occasionally, we'll get started late, or some people are slower readers than others, and that's fine. But then if you know that about yourself, if you're finding that Father's waiting for a while you finish up reading, you start just a little bit earlier just so that liturgy can start on time. Okay? Again, this is something I've said to all of you before, but just to make that extra clear. Let's see here. So at the bottom of each of these sections on your handout, there's a little note that says while you are reading. So that's just letting you know what action is happening while you are reading what you're reading. And that's important, especially at liturgy, because liturgy all of our services are a dialogue. All of our services need to flow nicely. But at liturgy, the timing is really, we're trying to really make it flow nicely. So at hours, during hours, Father Paul's usually down here doing his class, but if he's not down here, he's finishing up proscomedia, which is the service where he prepares the gifts. So After that, he does a great censing, which means that he censes the altar, the iconostas, the nave, the narthex, and the people. And so that'll happen during the 6th hour. And then as you're finishing up, you'll be reading this prayer of St. Basil at the end of the 6th hour. O God, the Lord of hosts and fashioner of all creation. And he's going to be usually in front of the altar getting ready to start the liturgy. And it's a really cool moment, like if it's timed just right, if you're finishing up and he's like in front of the altar with his hands up, like it's just like, it's a cool moment. So there are timing things that we just want to make sure things are flowing the way they should be. So as we're going through this document, we're going to be talking about what's happening while you're reading for each element of the service. Does that make sense so far? Anybody have any questions? Yes, Travis.
When does the first hour used? Is that for like pasta? Or?
So the first hour is called for after matins.
Okay.
You like finish matins and then immediately start the first hour. Usually in parishes that doesn't always happen. And then the 9th hour is like in the evening, like before Vespers thing.
Okay.
So we do that before Sanctified. So that's generally how those work. And the 3rd hour I think is like 6 a.m. and the 6th hour is like noon. Is that right? So we do the one that would happen before liturgy and the one that would happen after liturgy, and those kind of, we put those together before liturgy. Good? Okay, so then liturgy starts, and we sing the antiphons, and then we are at the Beatitudes. This part is the part that honestly I know the least about, because it's not a widely done tradition, so there's not a lot of information about it that I've been able to find, or that Peter's been able to find. So the order of this is can be found on the OCA website. It's also I forgot to bring the Minnean down, but it's in the Minnean for every day. If they're called for, it'll tell you what to do for the Beatitudes. And in the Triodian, it'll tell you what to do for the Beatitudes. So if we go to tomorrow morning, the 2nd Sunday in Lent, and we go to liturgy, it says here, the Beatitudes. With the Beatitudes, we sing 4 Troparia in the tone of the week from the Actoicos, and 4 Troparia from Ode 6 of the Canon of the Saint. It says canticle, ode, same thing. So
And Earmos, right?
Earmos is part of the ode.
Okay.
So the Earmos is the first part of the ode. So what I've been doing is I've been going and figuring this out beforehand, and I've been writing it in the rubrics for you. So when you are up to read the Beatitudes, you can look at the rubrics, and it's generally written in. I try to make sure it's written in beforehand. I'm trying to like do a bunch of them at a time, so they're there. If I disappear one day, you can find that on the OCA website. You can also find it in the Minnean or the Triodian or the Pentecostarian for the day. Tony.
So just a question about
Yeah.
that. First of all, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Second of all, so if we do have to look in the Minnean, obviously the Minnean doesn't know whether that day is Sunday or
Right.
not. So how do you know which?
Yeah. Okay, so that is completely correct. The Minnean assumes that it's a weekday. So when we are looking at the Minnean, and can somebody tell me what's in the Minnean? I would take 2 answers. Saints. Yeah.
Feast days.
And feast days. Saints and feast days. So the Minnean has every calendar day of the year in it, and it has at least one commemoration for every calendar day of the year. So when you go into the Minnean, you will look at the day for the day of the year, and it'll tell you at liturgy this is what's called for. It assumes it's a weekday, so it's going to tell you to do like only the saint. But on Sunday, what are we celebrating? It's the resurrection. We can't skip the resurrection. That's like not even a question. So we start with the resurrection. So you're going to see here on your sheet, there are a bunch of ifs. There are like 3 ifs here. So our general rule has been to do 8 usually. And if the rank of the day is high enough, then we'll do 10. So if the daily, so you'll have to do a little bit of work to find this, but usually I'll write this out for you. So there are 8 Triparia of the resurrection in the Octoicos. If the daily commemoration does not have a magnification, we magnify you. You know that part of Matins? Then we'll only do the 8 resurrection Triparia from the Octoicos. If it does have a magnification, we'll usually do 4 and 4, and we'll take what the Manean says. We'll do one of the odes that is called for in the Manean. Does that make sense, Tony?
Yeah. I didn't read ahead.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's good. And then on a Sunday, if we have 2, so the resurrection is a vigil rank commemoration. If we have 2 additional ones, like say it's a big saint day and a feast day, then we'll bump it up to 10, and we'll do 4 resurrection and 3 for each commemoration. You don't need to memorize this because we're gonna continue writing it in. But side note, the long-term plan here is to have like a binder at the reader stand that says like this is how you do everything. So eventually, I'm working on that. Eventually that will be there, so you could, if we're not there and there's nothing written in the rubrics, you can look at that binder and say, oh, this is how I do this. That's an eventual thing. So sorry, it's not there yet. But you'll also have this handy dandy thing, so that could help out. When we get to if we're doing 8. We're singing through the Beatitudes and we get to Blessed are the Merciful. The reader's going to start reading, okay? And then we go back and forth, choir, reader. There are fewer verses in the Beatitudes than Triparia that we're doing. So what do we do when the choir is done singing and you still have Triparia to read? If that question makes any sense.
You go through them all.
You do, but there's something in between. So you still have to do a verse in between.
You glory now.
Yeah.
Right?
So you'll do glory now and ever. So you should have 3 left. So we're gonna be done singing. You're gonna read 1, and you have 2 more. So you're gonna put a glory, and then do the second one, now and ever, and the last one. Okay. And that's an important note that I kind of forgot to mention last week. So circling back, when you are reading verses at Lord I Call, at the Apostica, at the Praises, here when they're like the Beatitudes like were the verses and now they're done, we are always going to end with Gloria now and ever. So like sometimes, usually we have the verses written into the text that we're singing from, like at Lord I Call. Sometimes we've put in music, right? And usually, hopefully, the glory and the now and ever are either written in or they're printed in there. So you need to remember, if you're done with verses, there are no more verses left. You need to remember whether or not you've done Gloria now and ever yet. And if you haven't, you're not done. So that's an important note. We're always, when we're doing verses, we're always going to end with Gloria now and ever. Okay? So I want everybody to lock that in. So while we're reading the Beatitudes, while we're singing and reading the Beatitudes, the clergy are preparing for the little entrance. And as you're finishing, they'll be in front of the royal doors. The priest will have the gospel, and it's a big kind of triumphant moment in the liturgy. So feel free to give it a little something. The church is also full, and you're like up here in the corner. So make sure people can hear you. Make sure you are giving it some oomph. You don't need to be shouting, but give it some oomph so people can hear you. All right, any questions about the Beatitudes? Okay. With that and with a couple other things, we've talked about being on pitch, picking a note that works for you. So generally, like altos and basses might have to go a little higher. Like often I'll end on a C, but I'll go up to the soprano note on an F or something like that, just to make it easier on me and easier to hear and understand. Do you have any notes about that?
I think if you're a bass and you're singing along, feel free to stick with whatever note you just ended on.
Mhm.
Stay on that note. Pretty much 95% of the time, that is a good bet.
Unless it's a D2.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're singing,
you're
yeah,
comfortable
if
there,
you've dropped
yeah.
the octave, not a
Yeah.
good place to read from.
In the Prokeimenon,
Yes, that's a different story. We'll talk about
Yeah.
the Prokeimenon. Yeah, the Prokeimenon has its own set of challenges.
So I forgot.
When you're reading along with the Beatitudes, if you're a bass, stay on whatever note you just ended.
Great. So I forgot one thing about hours. So this is why I wrote this up here, and I forgot to talk about it. But when some of you have come across, like it says, your alternate to Kontakia, and when it says that, it's assuming that you're doing all 4 hours. So let's say there are 2 Kontakia, and it says to alternate them. So you would do the first Kontakian, second Kontakian, first Kontakian, second Kontakian. But which ones do we do?
2 and 1.
3 and 6. So the second one will be on the 3rd hour, and the first one will be on the 6th hour. That's another thing that I've been writing in, but just to note that, okay? And actually, yes.
how do you know which one's the first one, second one?
It's pretty much it'll be in there. So it'll say like resurrection and saint, and the resurrection will be first. And
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be
Whatever order
Yeah.
they're printed in.
yeah, yeah. And we can talk about this more later too. But when if you're making yourself a little sticky note, I've seen a. You were all smart. You can figure this out. I just want to give you a little thing. So like, I had a friend who would do. I don't do it this way, but it's somebody who made like a little Punnett square like this,
Oh, wow.
and so they would have their 3rd hour, 6th hour Tuparian Kontakian, and write that in that way. I just kind of jot it down, 3rd, 6th Tuparian Kontakian. Usually that's how I write it down for you. So they're just figure out a way that makes sense for you, and if you want to like check with me before you, I think I'm reading tomorrow actually, but moving forward, if you want to check with me like on Saturday, if that's if you have the right thing, you can do that. But just like figure out a way that works for you. And there should be sticky notes in the basket in the reader stand, and you can bring that with you and know what you're doing. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the epistle. The epistle is the longest part. It has 2 pages. So, when I say, peace be unto all, what do you say? And to your spirit. So we all know that.
Wait, hold on.
To
I heard
with.
somebody say with. I heard somebody say with.
Well,
Okay.
said peace be with you all.
Did I say that?
So then you're okay.
Okay,
Yes,
you're right.
That is correct.
I'm so sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I say peace be unto all, you say
To your spirit.
and to your spirit. If I say peace be with you all, and with your spirit. It's a minor thing. It's nice to match. So that dialogue is always going to be the same. Okay? So we have this here with notes about the epistle. On the back here this is the epistle sheet for tomorrow. So you can see that we can just use this as a sample. So it has all the dialogue on it. It tells you what the priest's going to say, what the reader says, what the choir sings, all that. That dialogue is always going to be the same. So, if you know that, you can do an epistle without a sheet. We're going to keep making the sheets, but we want to make sure we want to get to where people can do it without a sheet. Okay? So this is the book that we read the epistle from, the Apostol. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's what I'm going with. And so this has all of the epistle readings for the year, and for services like baptisms, weddings, stuff like that. Okay. So many of you have used this before. I want to talk about some things that are in here that you may have not have looked at before. So at the beginning, there's a table of contents. That's important. Tells you.
It's not the same order as your home Bible. I found that
Right.
out.
That's correct. That's correct, because these readings, it's like not every bit of Paul's epistles are in here. These are the ones that we use for services in the Orthodox Church. So that is what is in here. And they're also, they're numbered. They have a number called a pericope, and that is in, when you are looking for the reading that you need, it's in the margin here. Okay. So there's the table of contents. After the table of contents, and after the foreword, there is a page here called Concerning Perkimena and Alleluia Verses. So if you don't have an epistle sheet and you are blanking, what do I say? What's the priest going to say? What am I going to do? And sometimes you're on the spot, even if you know it. Sometimes you're on the spot and you're like, you freeze, right? The text, in case you are in a pinch and you need it, it's here at the beginning of the book, the dialogue. Okay?
So that's like the let us attend, peace be.
Correct.
Well,
Yep.
all that right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then there are all the readings, many, many, many readings. You see these sticky notes. We keep sticky notes at the beginning of the book. There's too many here, and you can use these to mark the reading that you're reading. I'm going to call out Stuart. I noticed a while ago that he put his sticky notes at the bottom, and I thought that was really nice because it wasn't. I don't know if you do it every time, but I noticed it one time. It didn't. This is perfectly fine way to do it, but I think I might start doing that. It didn't really it wasn't super visible, and you wouldn't have to reach up like this. This book is really big for me, so I have to really reach, but that would keep it nice and easy to open. Okay, so in a few minutes we'll talk about what's at the back of the book. So, when we are singing, we're singing the Trisagion, there are two other things that we could sing instead of Holy God. What are, in place of Holy God, does anybody know those two things? As many? And we're going to sing one next week. Before Thy Cross, yes, exactly.
So whoever's reading next week, remember that Father Paul will be out in the
Correct.
night, so
Yes.
don't go yet.
Yes, that is important. No, I don't remember who's reading. I just made the schedule yesterday. I don't remember who's reading next week. But if you are the epistle reader, on a cross day, before that cross, the clergy come out and do prostrations in the center of the church. So instead of meeting the priest at the bottom of the steps, you're going to meet the priest where he is in the middle of the church, and then you'll just stay there. Okay. At the end of this, we're going to go upstairs and we're going to do that choreography, and I think everyone understands that, but I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So, so you go and get the blessing of the priest to read the epistle, and there's the Perkimenon. So you have the dialogue, and to your spirit, the Perkimenon in the sixth tone, and you introduce it. And then there's the choir will sing the Perkimenon, you read a verse, the choir sings it again, and you do a half verse. What do I mean by half verse? Anybody? Avery? You do the first half of the Perkimenon. Exactly. If there are two Perkimena, which there are tomorrow, if there are two Perkimena, we don't do that half verse, we just introduce the second Perkimenon. So we'll sing the first one twice, and then you just say in the tone, like tomorrow in the first tone, my mouth shall speak wisdom, the meditation of my heart shall be understanding. The choir sings that. So you don't need to say the Perkimenon in the first tone, you just say in the first tone, and you say it, and then we sing it. Okay? All right, we're going to look at the rubrics in a minute. The rubrics show you which reading is called for. There are some common introductions. So usually the epistle is from Paul. So we'll say the reading from the Holy Epistle of Paul to the Galatians, Colossians, to Timothy, etc. And then there's the Acts of the Apostles, which we read during Pascha. And then if there's a number, so if it's like 1 Peter, or God bless you. If it's like 1 Peter, you say from the first general epistle of the Holy Apostle Peter. Sometimes you'll see universal, sometimes you'll see Catholic. I've landed on general. If you might see in text somewhere another word. Okay, so we'll call that the introduction. And then what I'm calling the preface. The apostille is going to tell you how to start the reading. So, like here. So this is Holy Friday. Oh, I don't know what this is. This is Saturday before the cross. So it says, however, we speak wisdom among them that are perfect. But we don't want to start with however, because that's kind of a strange way to just start out of the blue. So at the bottom here it tells you, brethren, we speak wisdom. Okay, so it's going to tell you at the bottom how to start the reading. So you're not just going to start in with the text as you see it. You're going to look at the bottom of the page and it's going to tell you how to start. Yesterday we saw an interesting one. I can't remember what it said. It was like, beware, something like that. But like that's an unusual one.
Yeah, and just because the epistles start sometimes in the middle of Paul's letters, sometimes it's not just one word that we're replacing. Sometimes it might be like a couple words. So do look at the bottom because it'll help you get into the reading without starting cold.
And brethren is the most common one. For Timothy, it's my son Timothy. For Acts, I have these written on your sheet here. For Acts, it's in those days. Does anyone know, and the Gospels have prefaces too. Does anyone know what, the usual one that Father Paul uses is? The usual one that's called for?
At that time.
At that time, exactly. So, generally, these scripture readings from epistles, Gospels, and prophecies will have a preface. Occasionally it'll say my beloved, but so that'll be at the bottom of the page, so just make sure you check that. If there are two epistles, we don't introduce the second one, we'll just use the preface. So when we finish the first one, we don't say the reading from the epistle, we just say brethren, or whatever is called for. And we need to do that a little bit quickly, because Father Paul's waiting for you to be done to start the next part of dialogue. So if you have a pause, if you sound like you're done, there might be a little bit of hesitation, and then he'll say, wisdom, or peace be unto your reader. So you need to make sure that you're moving. So if you have to turn the page, and that's going to take you a second, I would say brethren, or whatever the preface is, so that Father Paul knows that there's more. Okay? Okay. Just skipping down to while you're reading. While you're reading the epistle, what's Father Paul doing? Nice reading. That's good. Yes, exactly. So he's sensing the altar and the iconostas and the people, and then the altar servers are preparing for the gospel. So the altar servers need to get their candles and the stand that Father Paul reads from. There's stuff going on. So generally there's enough time. The only epistle where there's not enough time is Christmas. It's really, really, really short. But generally there's enough time. So you should be fine on time, but you do just need to give the priest a cue for when you're done. And how do we give the priest a cue?
I just slow down.
The last word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we slow down a little bit. We make the last few words a little, give them a little something. We're calling that giving it an ending. Okay, so we want to do that when we're reading Old Testament readings, when we're reading the epistle, when we're reading most things. We want to make sure that there's a cue for the next day. Yes, Travis.
In the case of Christmas, I'll just confess that I haven't been observant enough. What do we do?
We read it a little bit slower. In some places I've been, they've done it in multiple languages, just because it's cool, but it's also takes up some more time. So here we just read it a little bit slower. We have had the situation this year. We had a deacon this year, and we said to the reader, I can't remember who was reading, but we said read a little bit slower. But then the deacon didn't sense during the epistle, because there are bells on the censer and it's loud. So sometimes if there are bells on the censer, they'll try to like do it more quietly, or they'll do it like real quick when you're done. So the reader was reading slowly, and there was no sensing going on, and Peter and I were like, ugh. So, but it worked out. It was fine. But so that's just a time when there are lots of things going on, and we're working together. We're a team, so we're working together to make the service flow smoothly. So we just being aware of what's going on. You don't want to get distracted, but being aware of what's going on is helpful, just to make sure that we're moving along the way we should be. Good? Okay, so then we get to Alleluia. Father Paul will say, peace be unto your reader. And you say, and to your spirit, Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. We only sing Alleluia, like we sing Alleluia, 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 that's 3 times, but we sing that 3 times. We don't want to sing it 4 times. So usually you will have 2 Alleluia verses. So you'll introduce Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. We'll sing. You'll read a verse. We'll sing. You read a verse, and we sing. So we sing 3 times. Sometimes, if there are 2 commemorations, like tomorrow, there are 3 verses. Anyone know how we handle that? Many of you know how to handle that. Yes, Dan?
The reader reads it.
When?
What?
When?
The last time?
So you have 3 verses. I'm sorry, just real quick. So you have 3 verses, and so what do you do to make sure that we sing only twice or 3 times? 'Cause usually there's 2. In this situation, there's 3.
You read it immediately after you say Alleluia 3 times.
Yeah. So you're gonna say, and to your spirit, Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. And today, the righteous cried, and the Lord heard them and delivered them out of all their troubles. And then we sing Alleluia. You have another verse. We sing Alleluia, another verse. And that just makes it so that we only sing 3 times. You have that extra verse because each commemoration, if it's a high enough rank, has verses at Alleluia. So those verses are not just like random. We don't just like decide, oh, hey, let's do these today. Those are assigned to the commemoration. So either, we do the resurrectional ones and for the tone of the week, and then we'll do the one for the saint tomorrow. That's what's happening tomorrow. That make sense? If it doesn't, it's okay. But if you have questions, please let me know. So you will see this spelled out here on the epistle sheet on the next page. So if you want to look at that, you can see how that all works out. Okay. If you do not have one of these, going back to the apostol, at the back of this book, there's the order of Prokimena, epistles, and Alleluia verses for every day of the year and every feast day and services like baptisms, etc. So if you don't have an epistle sheet, so this happened last week, we forgot to make one, and Stuart was reading the epistle, and I was like, okay, we can do this. This is going to work. So we went to the back of the book. We found Sunday, 4th tone. It has the Prokimena. It has the Prokimenon, and it has the Alleluia verses. And so we marked this page, and then we marked the page for the epistle. And so Stuart did it like this. So he went to the back of the book for the Prokimenon. He came up and read the epistle, and then flipped back for the Alleluia verses. So that is what you would do if you don't have an epistle sheet. You just remember, and to your spirit, and to your spirit, and to your spirit. And then you have all of the propers, the things that are changeable in this book here. Okay. One thing that was my bad last week, there were 2 epistles, and Stuart did those. We marked those, and that was right. I forgot the second Prokimenon. So that makes it a little bit more complicated. Last week there was the resurrectional Prokimenon, and then there was a Prokimenon for St. Gregory.
No, for the 40 martyrs.
For the 40 martyrs. I don't know what day it is. So I forgot the 40 martyrs one. So we just did the resurrection one. It was okay. It's fine. And we did the 2 epistles. But that necessitate another flip. So you would have the resurrectional page, and then you would go to March 9th, and you would find that day, and you would do that for Prokimenon. So that's another flip. It's a little bit more complicated, but it's just 3 flips. I believe everybody can do that.
You can just use those tabs to mark it out.
And you can use the tabs,
It's easy
yeah.
for yourself, so just, you know, get in a flip.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a trivia question.
What's
There are 2 Prokimenon tomorrow. Is the second one for St. Gregory, or is there a different saint?
It is for St. Gregory. Yeah. So you'll see here, there's the Prokimenon in the 5th tone for the resurrection. Thou, O Lord, shall protect us and preserve us from this generation forever. And then there is in the 1st tone, and thou shalt speak wisdom for St. Gregory.
And as a follow-up, are the Prokimenon for the Triodian in the Apostol, or do we need the Latin Triodian for that?
Those are in the Apostol.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in both places.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so at the bottom here, sorry, Nick, go on.
Oh, I was just wondering if it says, "Peace be with you all and to your spirit." I was wondering if that's okay.
That is so funny. I think it's usually into your spirit. I think Father Paul usually says, "Peace be unto all." This is probably just
Yeah,
saved at our
it's just-
computer
yeah,
for some
that is-
reason. I don't know why.
That's good to know.
That is a good note. Thank you. Yeah. And at the bottom of the page about the epistle, it tells there's a little bold thing that says the apostol, and it tells you what is in the back of the book. So those parts in italics, that's what's in the back of the book. I can't imagine something you need not being in there. I think it should all be in there. Yeah.
So like this morning, the verbiage of the Prokimenon was different, I'm guessing, than it was in the Apostol, right? Is that
It's different from the music we have.
different?
So-
Right.
Yeah,
So is that something that we should probably check then if we're not using a sheet like
It
this?
typically is the same, and in that case, I know that could be different, so I have the words
Right,
written above it.
yeah.
And pretty much, I think they're almost always the same. I don't think we've run into issues where they're different.
Gotcha.
So it's
So-
safe, just read what's in the Apostol and don't worry about if the sheet music is a little different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't give yourself the extra head.
Yeah, it's ideal if it matches, but yeah, it's not
Not a big deal.
it's not a huge deal. So what you're saying on the sheet here, it says, "Be glad in the Lord and rejoice, O you righteous," and we changed the music says, "Rejoice in the Lord and be glad, O you righteous." So it's just a flip. So on the sheet, this is the sheet that we had this morning. We had that epistle that Prokimenon written in, and then we wrote in the words that we sang.
That we sing.
So we try to make sure that matches, but if you're reading from the Apostolic, it might not. It's not the end of the world. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the epistle? In a few minutes, I'm gonna pass out the rubrics, and we're gonna look at how you figure out what you're looking for. Okay, the communion hymn. I'm not gonna talk about this very much. Not everyone's gonna do this. This is kind of it's a chanting thing, but it's kind of especially a singing thing. So you need to be really on pitch. We know that everyone can do it, but not everyone's going to, and it's going to be usually people who are right up around the director, just for convenience sake. So there's a Bible in the spinny stand, and it has a red tab for the Psalms. And in the front cover, there's a sticky note that says like which psalm each communion hymn is from. The reason that's important, especially, is because of the numbering of the psalms. So like when we sing, what I would call Psalm 51 is Psalm 50 or 51. So today I read a verse for the communion hymn, and the music said Psalm 64, but the Bible we have has it as Psalm 65. So just check that note just to make sure that you're on the right one. And that would be okay. So while you're reading this, the clergy are receiving communion and preparing the chalice. And when the curtain opens, we're gonna be done. That's gonna be our last verse, because that means that the priest is ready. When Father Paul isn't here, so when usually Father Paul's here and he opens the curtain when he's ready. Not every priest does that. Some of the priests we've had sub will like leave the curtain closed until we're done singing even. So sometimes we have to, like sometimes Peter and I will kind of communicate and be like, oh, I think that might be right, or we'll see when the altar servers are ready. Like sometimes that's a good cue. So just be aware that sometimes with a substitute priest that can be a different situation. Okay, prayers of thanksgiving. We use this book here. This book is a Divine Liturgy book published by St. Tikhon's Monastery. And it has the text of St. John Chrysostom's liturgy, St. Basil's, and the Presanctified liturgy. At the back of the book, it has the prayers of preparation for communion and the prayers of thanksgiving. The prayers of thanksgiving are what we read during the cross. So, the priest says, glory to thee, our God, glory to thee, our God, glory to thee. And you start and you just read, you basically just read through. When you get towards the end, after Our Father, there are 3 sets of Troparia and Cantacia. So those are for the author of the liturgy. So today we did the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. We do his Troparian and Cantacian. Tomorrow we do the liturgy of St. Basil the Great. We do his Troparian and Cantacian. For Sanctified is written by St. Gregory, and we do his Troparian and Cantacian. So you're always going to make sure that you should have those authors memorized, but you can also, like Father Paul does say, which does commemorate the author of liturgy at the end of liturgy, but you should know. If it's for Sanctified, St. Gregory. If it's a Sunday during Lent, St. Basil, etc. So then when you're done with that, now endeavor Steadfast Protectress, which is the Theotokian. So you just have to, if you're doing St. John Chrysostom, you skip over Basil and Gregory, and you go to Steadfast Protectress. While you're reading, people are venerating the cross. There may be, generally it's pretty quiet at St. Herman's. There may be conversation starting up, especially if there are a lot of visitors, or if let's say it's a baptism day, those tend to get loud. So don't shout, don't sound like a jerk, don't sound like you're like, be quiet, but be heard. And then after the cross, the priest goes and consumes the chalice. So when you get to the end, he gives an exclamation, and you say Amen, and that's it. That was really quick. A lot of you have done that. Okay. So if you've not read these things, or if you have but you're not super familiar with them, pay attention. Listen to when other people are doing it, and you can hear these things happening. You can see the back and forth, etc. And I don't know. That's how I learned. Honestly, I was just like in church all the time, and I was paying attention, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, that happens, and then that happens. That's cool. So everybody, that's an important thing to be doing as a reader. At the back here, these are a couple things that, on this last page, these are a couple things that either I forgot to mention last week, or we just wanted to put an extra point on. I want to talk first about the last thing, style. So everyone kind of it's okay to have a little bit of your own flair when you're reading. If you have your own, some people have different cadences. I have one friend who has a really beautiful cadence that every line is it goes like this, and it's really pretty. But if you read in a book about chanting in a church, it'll sometimes say that the right way to do it is to read straight, is to chant straight. So just
monotone.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason to do that is that you don't influence the meaning. So I know in one psalm I say I think it's in what do I call? In the Set a Watch psalm. So sometimes I say but mine eyes, and that's influencing the meaning a little bit, because you're talking about what other people are doing, and they're falling into a pit and all these things, but mine eyes are toward the Lord, and so we don't want to quite do that. I notice myself doing that, and I try not to like give it such an emphasis there, you know.
I
Yes.
didn't notice that.
Okay, great. Woo, perfect. I'm just very self-conscious. So it's okay to go up and down. That's not a requirement here to chant straight. It's not a requirement in the OCA even, like, but you may, if you like read a book about this kind of thing, which you do not need to do, but if you do, it may say that that is the way to do it. The point above that is fit the mood. So sometimes I will chant more straight, like during Holy Week, just to give it a little bit more of like a somber, darker, you know, mood, I don't know, Holy Week kind of feel. So during Holy Week, I don't want to be like, da, 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 da. I want to be like, you know, bless the Lord, O my soul, Lord my God, thou art very great, thou art clothed with majesty, you know, just kind of like straighter. I usually chant a little bit lower during Holy Week and during the first week of Lent. These are things that are not, you don't need to, just don't get distracted by these things, but it is a thought. And then like for the Beatitudes, when I'm finishing up the Beatitudes, there's an entrance going on, and I try to be a little bit more triumphant. So there are just like times when you might want to be just a little bit thinking about the mood, thinking about what's going on, and trying to like match that. Does that make sense? And this isn't like, we don't have to be this like grand performer, soloist kind of thing. That's not the point. It's just to make sure that the service feels cohesive.
It's about fitting into the mood of the service, right?
Yeah.
During Great Lent, we have certain music we sing. It's all about creating an atmosphere. And that doesn't mean that it's a performance. That just means that we're trying to all be homogenous, right? We all want the way Father's sounding the way that we sound. If Father's going faster, maybe you go faster. If Father's going slower, you go slower. If Father's, on a triumphant pitch, maybe you're a little more triumphant. Mm-hmm. It's all about having a dialogue that's the same, right? Mm-hmm. If you were talking to somebody and you were shouting at them and they were whispering, that would be weird, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. If someone came up to you and they sang at you and you didn't sing back, they might feel awkward, right? So it's about having a good, cohesive conversation. Mm-hmm. And everything we do, when we sing and when we read, it's all part of that dialogue. Mm-hmm. So fit into the dialogue appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so then when we're doing that, and we don't want to be too melodic either. We don't want to be like, bless the Lord, O my soul, blessed art thou. We don't want to be super up and down. We want to. You can read super straight. We don't want to be all over the place because that can be distracting. And it can be distracting for you as well as the people who are listening to you. You don't want to get like caught up in what you're doing. You want to be able to proclaim what you're proclaiming smoothly. When you're reading, sometimes it can be easy to get caught into like a rhythm that doesn't always make our sentences make sense. Sometimes, I've been guilty of this. We want to make sure that a rhythm really helps because it helps it kind of roll. I find that really helps me. But we want to be emphasizing the important words in the sentence. A lot of times you haven't seen what is in front of you, so I don't expect you to like know the sentence and know the important words. But we don't want to be emphasizing, like sometimes we'll emphasize like the first word of the sentence. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Blessed art thou, O Lord. Bless the Lord, O my soul. We want to make sure that we are reading the sentence. Does that make sense? I've gotten really hung up on how I'm saying Holy God, and I can't decide. I guess I need to say Holy God, but I've been going back and forth between like Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, have mercy on us, or Holy God, Holy Mighty, and I'm not. It's like so small, but I'm like caught up on it. don't overthink it, but like, which I'm clearly doing, but just make sure that you are not being too caught up on like the beginnings of sentences or words that are not like the important words in the sentence.
Yeah, I think a lot, sometimes you listen to people read, right? And if you were listening to somebody read on the Peanuts, you would hear like, right? And then you get in front of the reading, you're like, oh, I know what to do. Bless the Lord of my soul. Oh Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty. Thou dost clothe thyself. And it's like, that's not good, right? So look for the word that you should be emphasizing. And I would say for the most part, it's not going to be the first word, mostly. And it's probably not going to be I, me, thou, right? Try to look for actions and the things that are being acted upon. It's a lot to think about, don't get me wrong. It's a lot to think about, especially if somebody puts an Old Testament reading in front of you or Proverbs and you're like, oof, this is a lot of sentences, I don't know what to emphasize. Don't get caught up in it, but don't get caught up in because that's not.
We're not machines, we're humans.
Yeah. Right. So you might think like if you have to read something you've never seen before, maybe it's easier to be really try to just pick a note. Don't think, oh, I'm going to be really flowery about this and find all the right words. It might just be easier to read a little more monotone, especially if it's something you haven't seen before.
Yeah. Okay. And then we already talked about how we always need to end with Glory Now and Ever. And I forgot to mention, this isn't going to click for everybody, but at Matins, when we do a Kentuckian during the canon, the part that you read is the ecos. So St. Romanus the Melodist wrote all of these Kentuckia, and they're really long. So we just sang like the first part. But then there are all of these verses and all of these like more parts of it, and the last line gets repeated in between them. We don't really do that anymore. But we just do the first part, and then we do like the first part of the ecos. So that's the historical background of that. We have volumes of those if you want to see them. So we'll sing the Kentuckian, we read the ecos. Sometimes we'll repeat that last line. But so just I don't remember if I said the word ecos last week, and we got to Matins and I was like, oh, ecos. So, all right, that's the packet. I don't want to keep you too long, so just for a few minutes, we're going to look at the rubrics here. This is the rubrics for tomorrow and next week, next Sunday. It is stapled together. What you're going to do is take a highlighter. Well, this is the first thing I want you to do. I hope you have a highlighter. If you don't, please share with somebody. Some of you have like kids' markers because that's what I had. Go down. And we are looking for, so at the bottom there, this doesn't have like the Vespers and Matins. This is just, so we're kind of starting in the middle of the day here. So you're going to look at the bottom of the page. It says Divine Liturgy of Basil the Great. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. So what we're going to be looking for is the Beatitudes, Hours, the Epistle, and that's it. So Hours will be first. Yep, Beatitudes. Epistle. So I'd like you to highlight those, just those like words, so you know where they are. Does that make sense? Okay. The Beatitudes is the only tricky one because it's not printed. I wrote it in, so.
Oh, okay. either didn't copy well, or you forgot to leave off which odes we're singing from?
We're gonna have to come to that. It was a
Oh, well, was it-
there is
that
a
was
there is a mistake there. We're gonna
Oh,
we're gonna
I
talk
thought
about
you
it.
were gonna say that was a pedagogical tool. That's what you said.
Figure
when
it
you
out.
made a mistake. Yeah, figure it out.
Testing.
Right. Just seeing who's paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, so when you're done with that, let's go to that front page, Sunday, March 16th, Divine Liturgy of St. Basil the Great. And we're going to look at each element that we talked about today. Okay, so first we're going to look at hours, because that's the first thing that happens chronologically. And so you can see there that that all it calls out is Triparia, Pentakia. Did everybody see that? So for the Triparia, we do the resurrectional Triparian, Glory, St. Gregory. Okay? For the Pentakia, what does anybody notice? Something we talked about there.
Are we done at 6 verses of the Triodian and 3 of St. Gregory's? Or?
No, but that's a good thought.
Third hour is St. Gregory, so it goes 2 then 1, right?
Exactly. Yep. So St. Gregory will be on the 3rd hour, Triodian will be on the 6th hour. Because remember, it's assuming that we're doing all 4. 1, 3, 6, 9. So the second one is on the 3rd, the first is on the 6th. Okay? And it says there to be read alternately. That's what that means. It's back and forth. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about that?
What were you saying to, what is to be read alternately specifically?
The Pentakia.
The Pentakia.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the Triparia, you are during the hours you are going to do 2 Triparia. So if there's more than 2 Triparia, usually the second 2 will be read alternately. Okay? So we always do the resurrection, and then you alternate the second 2. And then on each hour you only do 1 Pentakian. So if there's more than 1 Pentakian, we need to alternate them. Okay? That's an important note, that we're not just like picking one. We can't do more than 1. That's the point. We can't do both Pentakia in that spot because only 1 is called for there. Okay? For the Beatitudes, could you please cross off? I made a mistake here. So we're going to cross off that 10 and write in 8. And we're going to cross off where it says 3 Triodian Ode.
I think you anticipated my next question.
Yep. And then we're going to cross out, well, no, wait a second. So what's weird about if we leave that, so we have 4 Resurrection, 3 Gregory. Is that how we do it?
That's only 7.
We need 8. So we're going to do 4 Resurrection and 4 Gregory. Okay?
And so my question was,
What's up?
wouldn't the St. Gregory readings be in the Triodian?
They are.
So that distinction was not.
So there are 2 for these Sundays. There are two canons in
Okay.
because those Troparia come from the canon.
Yeah.
So there are 2 canons. There's a
Okay.
Triodian canon and a Gregory canon.
So there's one that's like just because it's Lent.
Correct.
And the other one is because it's the second Sunday of Lent.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's because the Triodian one is what the Triodian used to contain.
Mm.
And over time, we've added in Gregory, the Sunday of Orthodoxy, Gregory, St. Mary. So a lot of those texts, some of those texts got shoved to the beginning, the preparatory section, and some of them stayed where they are. So you'll notice this week, you're going to hear a lot in the canon about the prodigal son, and you'll think, we already did that. Well, it's because over time, that got pushed, some of that content got pushed forward, but it still stays where it is, and to that we've added Gregory. So that's why there are 2 canons on these Sundays.
Historical note, thank you. So, so for Gregory, we're going to do 4 from Ode 6. So you can write in 4 and Ode 6. Okay. So when you're doing that, where are the resurrection? Where's the resurrection stuff? What book does that come out of? The Actoicos. So we'll take this one. It's a volume is the volume for tones 5. we'll turn to Sunday for tone 5, and we'll read 4 resurrection, and then Gregory comes from the Triodian, so we take the Triodian. And what do we do when we are done singing the Beatitudes and we still have verses left? What do we do in between those Triparia? Glory. Glory, and then now endeavor. That's Peter's signal for glory. Okay, so that's the Beatitudes. Okay? We'll have that written in there. So the goal here is just for you to be a little bit more familiar with the rubrics and see like where these things are and be able to look when it's your turn to read these things, to be able to look and find what you're looking for. Okay?
So just to, for my own piece, because I would like to be able to do this myself someday, to get the Beatitude verses you looked in the Lenten Triodian? Or
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
So you'll look on that on Sunday
Yeah.
during Lent. Yes, you will look in the
Second Sunday of
Triodian.
Lent, it's right in there.
Yes.
Okay.
If so, like last week, Tony, we did the Resurrection. We did Sunday of Orthodoxy. We also did the 40 Martyrs of Sebast. So they came out of
The lucky person last week had 3 books to look at.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a wrinkle. But generally, you're going to look like for the day in the book for the day, and then you're going to find what you're looking for.
Now, what days do have 10? There are some that have 10 Beatitudes readings, or no way to read.
So sometimes, if we're in an after feast, so let's say like it's the Nativity of the Theotokos, and it's the Sunday after that, we'll do 10. If we have 2 big commemorations, so say it's St. Herman is on a Sunday, and we are still in Transfiguration, and it's Sunday, so we need to read verses for the Resurrection, verses for St. Herman, verses for Transfiguration. So we'll do 10 there. So if we have like big commemorations like that, we'll do 10.
If there's a lot of content to go through.
If it's, yeah, exactly, yeah. And it like bumps up the honor too a little bit. So it's like we're fitting all the content in, but we're also like doing more. Triparia is like a note that this is a higher rank day, basically. So we're kind of like bumping it up, yeah.
So is how we split them, is that kind of parish by parish sort of thing, or is the OCA provide you need to do 4 of this?
The OCA provides it. We do generally less than the OCA says to do. Often they say to do 12, and we've made the parish practice call to do it the way that we've.
If you're doing 12, do you just immediately start reading, right?
Think so.
There's no,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
sing one verse and you start reading.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels really interruptive to me, so I
Yeah.
that
makes sense.
I don't know. It's like it's not a super widely done practice, so we don't even have a lot of people to talk to about like, well, what do you do? And so like
Yeah.
we're kind of we figured it out and we fit in the content. So
Just anecdotally, I was traveling once and I visited a Greek parish. And apparently they had a guest priest and he said, okay, we're going to read the Beatitudes today. I know you don't normally do that,
Oh
but
my.
I think it's really important. So,
whoa,
yeah,
that's new. That's
Yeah.
fun.
that was
We-
shocking to me.
We went to church in San Francisco and they sing them. So they'll sing the verse from the Beatitudes and then they sing the Troparion and then they go through that. So
Oh.
there's different ways to do it. So yeah, I don't know.
That's basically like doing the canon.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah, it is basically like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I want to show you. Oh gosh. Okay, I don't have. Turn the page to the second page of your packet here, of your rubrics packet. I want to show you like what the beginning of a day looks like, and I don't have that for a Sunday. So you'll see Monday, March 17th here. The lectionary, which is the readings for the day, are always going to be here at the beginning. So if there were liturgy on this day, there would be an epistle and a gospel called out. This has Old Testament readings for Vespers because there's no liturgy on this day. But so when you come to the rubrics and you're looking at a Sunday, it'll have the date, and it'll have the saints that commemorated that day, and it'll have the lectionary readings. But then, if you turn further, so we can go back to the first page. Sorry, I just wanted to show you what that looks like. But then once you're in it and you're in the liturgy part, you'll see at the bottom of the page here the Prokeimenon. So it tells you all the Tropari and Catecheta that are called for, and then it tells you the Prokeimenon. So you'll see that there are two there, one for the resurrection, one for Gregory, and then it says epistles. Does anybody remember what the number in parentheses is called? The pericope. I used to call it a pericope.
Pericope.
And Stuart corrected me and was like, good, I'm glad I know that now. Thank you, Stuart. so when you are, so for tomorrow, it's 304 and 318. So you'll come here to the epistole, you'll look at this number on the side here, you'll turn to the correct one, you'll mark it with a sticky note, and then you'll go find the second one, you'll mark that with a sticky note. We already have an epistle sheet for you, so you don't have to worry about that tomorrow. But so those are in there. And then at the end, you'll do the Alleluia verses, which will be on your epistle sheet, and you can see those called out here too. So that's
And the tones are correct. Yeah, it's Alleluia in tone 5 or Alleluia in tone 2. Is that?
for Alleluia? Yeah, we don't always do. That's not like super requirement that you have to do the one in the tone. So like if we sing like number 9 through 11, those are like composed. They're not like in a tone.
Gotcha.
So we don't usually say like in tone.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
For Alleluia. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So also like in an extreme emergency where you're like, oh gosh, the person you're supposed to read isn't here, and we don't have an epistle sheet. Oh gosh, what do I do? You could just grab the rubrics and grab the apostole, and you can take that to the center of the church, and you can do it. It'll be a little bit of juggling, but all that information is there, and you wouldn't have to do all the. That's an emergency. So, if we don't have an epistle sheet, you'd have to look in the apostole and find the information you're looking for. So those are the things. And then whose liturgy are we doing tomorrow? St. Basil. So that's whose Tropari we would do. Okay. Questions? Yes,
I have
Ryan?
a weird theology question.
Okay.
What exactly happens when the rank of a day changes over time? Like on the temporal plane and the eternal plane? Do we just have no idea,
Whoa.
or?
Whoa.
The rank of a saint is set when they're
Compose when it's written.
yeah when it's written and when it's decided that they're going to be canonized. Typically newer saints they're probably going to be a higher rank just because people are excited about them. They're new. A saint is always going to be a higher rank wherever that saint is canonized. So like Saint Olga is going to be canonized. She'll be a visual rank here in America, but she'll just be maybe like a 6th Secure saint elsewhere. So here in America, she'll be a bigger deal than elsewhere.
So there's geography to it too. That's great.
Yes. Yeah. So like a saint might be like a saint in Serbia might be like Saint Stephen, right? Is a big saint in Serbia because that's where he was. He was a king there. But in America, we might just be like, well, less of a big deal here.
And like Saint Nina of Georgia she's like an equal to the apostles, enlightener of a land, like super cool. We don't have a visual rank saint, a service for her in Armenian because we are not Georgian, and like it kind of seems like we should. But that service does exist, and they do it in Georgia, but like because we don't have Georgian texts, we don't have that service. So like it kind of depends on where you are, and
Cool.
And I've been interested in actually what's going to happen with Saint Olga because like newer saints they don't have to be visual rank. There's no requirement that they do, but she probably will just because people, yeah, because people are excited about her and because there aren't very many American saints, and it's exciting and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
So then she could outrank someone who we currently have vigil for.
right,
That's wild.
it could happen. Well, so vigil rank, like they're
Mhm.
they don't outrank each other necessarily, but she could outrank like
Well, 'cause you
whoever
can't
we
do
do
all
that day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, when there's a newer saint, do they ever raise up to be commemorated, like my Saint Porphyrio? We never sing.
And it might just be that have we had church that day? I don't know. We do try sometimes. We try to do, but
I've just
Yeah.
never heard of it.
and
I have no-
there might be somebody on that day who's a higher rank, and
Right.
so we usually go to the person who's a higher rank.
But I mean, do the ranks ever change, or is it just permanent?
No.
No, that's permanent.
Mm-mm.
And every saint, so like, if you look in the rubrics, and maybe what you have in front of you shows you that, it'll tell you, there's like a dozen saints for every page,
Mhm.
right? And so every saint has a service. It may not be composed per se, so there are called general Manaean texts, and so there'll be general Manaean texts for a saint, for a nun, for a martyr, for a priest monk, and then you would just insert their name. So, if you were in some place and people are like, oh, it's really important that we celebrate so and so today, and you didn't have text,
Yeah.
you would use the general Manaean text and then insert the person's name where appropriate.
And you'll see that in some of the texts we sing, like for martyrs, their Traparia often end with "Glory to thee who granted thee a crown, glory to thee who," it's in tone 1. For a virgin martyr like Saint Anastasia, her "Thy lamb Anastasia calls to thee, O Lord, I love thee, my bridegroom," and that's the same for Saint Agnes, and that's the same for I think maybe Saint Barbara. I can't remember if Saint Barbara's is different. So like there are like classes of saints, and then ranks. So you'll see that for the general Manaean, like there is a martyr's Troparion, and their names can be inserted in there, and specifics about their life and stuff like that. Okay. Anything else? All right, we're going on a field trip. We're gonna go upstairs. I want to show everybody a couple things.